You are listening to episode number 65 of the Everything Ham Radio podcast. In this episode, we're going to be continuing our discussion that we started last week with Dan Romanchik, KB6NU, about teaching a ham class. Well, today we're going to talk about some follow-up classes that you can do. We're also going to talk about some upcoming events and contests, as well as some Hamfests and some other stuff, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. This is episode number 65, like I said. Today we're going to be talking about some follow-up classes that you can teach after a technician class. You know, if you listened to last episode, we talked with Dan Romanchik, KB6NU, about teaching a technician class. And one of the things that we talked about was follow-up classes, you know, some different ideas for them. We really didn't go very deep into that subject. So I thought that this week we would do something like that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we go into that, there's a couple things that I wanted to say. And so first off, if you would like to follow me on Facebook, you can go to my Facebook page at facebook.com/everythinghamradio. I also have a group, which I wish I would have started in the first place rather than the page. And that's at facebook.com/groups/everythinghamradio. In that group, we have, it's growing quite fast, I think. We're up to about 68 people or so. And every week, I have a Facebook question of the week. I've gotten some pretty interesting feedback and fairly good participation in the questions. But this week, the question that I want to ask, and I hope that I get some really good responses to this question, because I really want to hear this. The question is, what is the funniest phonetics that you can think of for your call sign? Now, I've heard some real doozies, you know, in field day. I've heard some real good ones, and probably the one that really sticks out in my mind the most was about 15 years ago or so. And I was driving down I-35 coming south out of Claiborne, or out of Fort Worth, and this car passed me. And I looked down at the license plate, and it was a ham radio license plate. And I'm like, you know, cool. And it was something along the lines of like November 5, Charlie Foxtrot Sierra. And I didn't really think a whole lot of it, you know, because I was far away from my typical repeater, and I wasn't listening to the one of the Fort Worth repeaters or anything like that. So I didn't really think anything of it. And it wasn't until the next car passed me, and I looked at that license plate, that I noticed that it had the same license plate as well. It was also a ham radio tag, and it was November 5, Charlie Foxtrot Sierra. Now, I don't know about any other state, but here in Texas, you're allowed to have multiple cars with the same license plate, as long as you are the owner of the vehicle, you have a amateur radio license, and you have a radio in that vehicle. So you can have, you know, 3 cars and a motorcycle or something like that, and have all of them with the same license plate on your call sign. So it wasn't until that second car passed me that I really started to get a little curious. So I turned my radio over to a repeater, local repeater, and tried to call them. Didn't get an answer. So I switched over. I was coming up to where I could hit my local repeater. I switched over to it and tried to give him a call, and sure enough, he was listening. So we had this nice 15-20 minute QSO as we were driving home. And as I was pulling up into my driveway and got ready to clear, 73, have a good safe trip. And come to find out, him and his family were traveling, and it took 2 cars to travel, unfortunately, which I totally get now. But anyways, I cleared off, 73, have a safe trip, and gave my call sign, Kilo 5 Charlie Lima Mike. I think I had that call sign at the time. Anyways, when he cleared, I couldn't help but laugh because he didn't clear off saying, 73, November 5, Charlie Foxtrot Sierra. No, he cleared 73, have a good November 5 chicken fried steak. And it just kind of, it really made me laugh. And I needed to laugh that day because I had a really rough day. But I will always remember his call sign, and I will always remember that cue. So what is a funny phonetic for your call sign? Make sure you go to the group, Facebook group. Again, that's facebook.com/groups/everything ham radio, and leave your funniest phonetic that you can think of for your call sign. Now, this could be one that you can just think of, or it could be one that you use regularly. Next up, I'm on YouTube. You can find me on there at youtube.com/everything ham radio. Currently, I have all of my episodes on there. However, it's just the logo on the picture itself, but then the audio in the background. I was going to try and work on something to have a little bit more video in there, but that has not happened yet. And not sure exactly when it will, but I plan on it. So make sure you stay tuned. I actually might have some other videos as well on there. And last but not least, I'm on Twitter, and you can find me there at K5CLM. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, I also wanted to let y'all know about some other exciting news. And I actually, I think I told y'all about this last week. So if I did, just, please forgive me. But I'm like super stoked about this. I'm super excited because, as many of y'all know, or maybe you don't know, my wife and I are foster parents. We've been foster parents now for about 2.5 years or so. And we've had about 18 kids come and go into our home. And we had this group of kids, this 4 kids, well, 3 kids actually that were here originally. It's 3 girls. They were like 2, 3, and 12. They came to us last October of 2015, and they were with us until August. Then they went home to their parents, to their biological parents. Well, for circumstances beyond their control, they came back to us in December, and this past Tuesday, we were able to go to court, and their biological parents' parental rights were terminated or were relinquished, and made it to where we are able to adopt them. So come July, I will be the proud father of 4 beautiful kids, 3 girls and 1 boy. The boy is coming up on 9 months now. So I will have 4 kids that have my last name. So I will have a instant family. And like I said, I am super stoked. It's about the only thing I can think of here the past week or so. We've had a lot of long conversations with the 12-year-old and figuring out what name she wants to change her name to, and just all kinds of things. Asking questions on, can I do this now that I won't be in foster care, and can I do that? And it's exciting to say yes. Yes, you can drive the 4-wheeler now. Yes, you can jump on the trampoline with more than one person on there if we so choose to allow you. Yes, you can do this. Yes, you can do that. So it's been a very exciting week. And, these 90 days that we have to wait are going to go by so fast and yet go by so slow. But come the end of July, we'll actually be able to adopt them. So I'm excited about that. Next up, you probably realized that, the past couple weeks or so, I've been doing a lot of interviews, and up until a couple weeks ago, I haven't been able to do the interviews because I haven't had internet in my shack or in my recording studio where I do these recordings. And I tried a couple before, way back in like episode 30 or something like that, somewhere around there. I did like 4 of them, and I did them at work, and it made it really hard to do. because somebody would say something on the radio or somebody would call or something like that, and I would have to step away, and I ended up asking a question that was already answered, or turning a 45-minute interview into an hour and a half because something happened. So now that I have internet in my shack, I've been trying to do these interviews. Well, I've got several people that I've got emails out to come onto this show and talk to us. But this week, I wasn't able to get one, so it's just me this week. But if you would like to come on the show and talk about something, please make sure and shoot me an email at k5clm@everythinghamradio.com. We'll get something scheduled. We'll talk about what to talk about and go from there. I do have one scheduled for next week, and that one we're going to talk about remote control vehicles, remote control airplanes, cars, drones, so on and so forth. So I look forward to that because I've been fascinated with stuff like that ever since I was about 12, but never have gone into it and figured it out. And once I became a ham and realized that you can use your ham license to control these aircraft and with the drone, use amateur radio bands to transmit the video signal back to you, and having higher power, you can go farther and stuff like that. And actually, when I started my blog, 2.5 years ago or so, I actually planned out my first quarter of all the stuff that I was going to write about. And one of those topics was this remote control vehicles. But as you can tell here 2 years later, I still have not done anything with it. So I'm excited about next week and talking with him. So stay tuned next week and check out that episode. So the only other thing that I can think of really, you've heard me talk about the QSL cards that I've partnered with KB3IFH on a affiliate membership, I guess you could say, or affiliate agreement with him on QSL cards. Well, I've gone a little bit one step further, and I've got some other items that you can buy that will have my podcast logo on them. I have a couple drink coasters, a mouse pad, a coffee mug, a travel mug, and there's something else. I can't remember the third thing. So I'm working on that. I'm working on getting it put up on the website. So make sure that you check the website this coming week and check that out. Really neat little things. They're going to be totally customizable with your call sign on them as well. So, if you like to drink coffee and you want a coffee mug, it'll have my podcast logo on one side and your name and call sign on the other. So totally customizable, and we'll have my logo on them as well for the podcast here, and that will help support this podcast and to pay the bills and keep the lights on, so to speak. So check the website everythinghamradio.com over the next week, I would say 2 weeks tops. Check that out and find something that you like and order it. Also, the QSL cards, you can contact Randy, KB3IFH, and make sure that you tell him that you heard about him on my podcast, so I can get that affiliate commission back from him as well. And I guess that's pretty much about it. I will have links to his website on the show notes of today's episode as well. Actually, you can go to everythinghamradio.com/QSL cards, and it'll take you to his website. So I guess let's go ahead and get started with the topic of today, which is, again, follow-up classes to teach after a technician class. And it's more for any class, but technician classes is generally when most of these are going to be taught. So a lot of these topics or these class ideas come from questions that have been asked of me over the past 15 years or so that I've been helping teach technician classes in my local club. And probably the most common question that I've been asked is how to program my radio. What frequencies do I put in there? How do I save the memory channels? How do I, do this or that? So that is probably the first class that I recommend that you, either as an individual or you as a club, teach after a technician class, or set up a class rotation or something like that. Do your technician class, then do programming radios, and then do this, then do that. But definitely somewhere in there, have a class on programming radios, because it's very common question. Now the problem is that each manufacturer has a different method of programming. It might be that to save a memory channel, you have to do function 3 on a Kenwood, and you have to do function 1 on an ICOM, and function 6 on a Yaesu. So each one of them are a little bit different, and it could actually even vary from radio to radio as well. So typically the answer that I have to end up giving is somewhere along the lines of, bring your radio and your manual to the next meeting, or, let's meet up somewhere and let me look at it. And, that's all well and good to do, but, have a class, have some way to get everybody together. And, you can have a couple Elmers in your club that are good at the technical aspects of the hobby to come and help you. That way you can have more, like one-on-one time with the new hams. Now, another question along those lines that I get is, what frequencies should I put in my answer? And again, that answer varies from person to person depending on a multitude of different variables. Things like, where does that person go frequently? Where do they live at? Where do they travel a lot? And unfortunately, are they radio savvy, I guess you could say. We have a lot, not a lot, but we have some people that I know here that are technology challenged, maybe is the word I'm looking for, that are not very tech savvy, and that have problems, changing from a memory channel to a VFO and programming in the frequency and the tone and the offset and everything on their own. So a lot of times what we've done here for those people, of course, we teach them how to do it, of course, but we've also gone one step further, and we've kind of gone to a standardized memory channel, or channel list, I guess you can say. We have the list of all the repeaters that we use and the repeaters in the area, and they're all the same. So a lot of our club, I would say probably 75% of our club, their handhelds that they use in events are all programmed the same way. And even those that are not, that actually are tech savvy or are actually teaching them how to do it, like me, for example, my radio is this way as well. Now I'll have some variations throughout the programming, but for the most part, the top 10 memory channels are going to be the same as every other person in my club. And the reason behind this is that it's a whole lot easier for some people to say, or to hear, change your radio to channel 3 rather than change your channel to 145.66 with a negative offset and a PL tone of 88.5 and a split offset or something like that. It's a whole lot easier to just say go to channel 3. and they can, look down on their radio, turn the dial to channel 3, and they're up and running. You don't have to explain anything further, especially when you're on a net or something like that. So, but again, I'm not saying that we don't, teach these people how to program their radios, how to use their radios, but we still make it as easy as possible, because sometimes it's just easier that way. Another thing that I often recommend is, if your radio has the capability, program the radio on a computer, and use the Chirp program, which is a free program you can download off the website, and there is a link to it in the show notes of today's episode as well, which I haven't told y'all about. I haven't told y'all where the show notes is. Shame on me. Here we are 20 minutes into the episode, and you don't know where the show notes are. Well, I hope you know where the show notes are, but here it is. Show notes can be found at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/65. That's number 65. And like I said, there is a link to the Chirp program, where to download it, how to use it, what radios it is compatible with, in the show notes of today's episode. And there's a lot of radios that it's compatible with too. So more than likely, the radio that you have, if it's a relatively new one, you're going to be able to use this. You just have to have the programming cable. And sometimes the programming cable actually comes with it. But if you're going to be teaching this class, or your club is teaching this class, or has this class, I would also recommend going and buying the programming cables for each brand. Buy one for Kenwood, buy one for Yaesu, buy one for ICOM, buy one for Baofeng, buy one for TYT, whatever. All the major brands. Make sure that your club goes and buys these programming cables, especially if you're going to be doing this class on a regular basis. Go and buy it. That way you have it, and you can help these new hams to get their radio programmed a whole lot faster than having to do it manually. Of course, you still want to teach them how to do it manually if at all possible. Some of the radios, like the Baofeng U5RV or something like that, it's really a pain to do it manually, but it is doable. But it's a pain. It's a whole lot easier just to plug it in to the Chirp program, put your stuff in there, write it to the radio, and away you go. So, okay, before we go on, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from West Mountain Radio, our sponsor of this podcast. Are you tired of lousy propagation conditions and wondering how to work some real DX for a change? Maybe you spin the dial and wonder what's going on below the voice segment of the HF bands. The answer is, you're missing out. You're missing out on digital modes, a rapidly growing and exciting part of amateur radio. Work real DX with the incredible JT65 and JT9 modes. It's no exaggeration when I tell you, you will work stations you never thought possible, even using low power and compromised antennas. Have fun making new contacts in modes such as PSK31, Olivia, Radio Teletype, Slow Scan TV, and many more. The Rig Blaster Advantage is everything you need to operate these exciting digital modes. Made right here in the US, the Rig Blaster interface has set the standards for nearly 20 years. Thousands of satisfied operators have learned their Rig Blaster Advantage will provide solid digital communications, easy operating, and reliability. Don't miss out on the fun and excitement any longer. Head on over to everythinghamradio.com/WMR for more information and learn how to get your free USB port monitor with your purchase. Alright, so we are back, and we're going to continue on with some follow-up classes that you as an individual or you as a club can teach for new hams. We talked about programming. Let's talk a little bit about antennas. That's probably one of the other questions that I get asked quite a bit. Should I buy an antenna? Which antenna should I buy? Should I just make one? Those type of things. And I'm sure if you've been a ham for any length of time, you've been asked that question as well. Or maybe you're a new ham and you're asking those questions yourself. So as a club and as a Elmer, it's a good topic to teach about how to build antennas. Now, I could easily just say, go out and buy you an Arrow dual band J pole, or a Ringo Ranger vertical, or a G5RV Junior for HF, or whatever. I could very easily do that, but those cost money, right? And not everybody has the money to go out and just buy stuff, or maybe they just want to build something. And as a club, this gives you the opportunity to teach a new ham how to use their own minds and their own bodies to build something. And this could give them the bug to go into that niche of amateur radio, building things. And that niche is just, there's so many options to it. And, even with just antennas, there is so many options out there. And so, building antennas, that's probably a very good class to teach. And, there's several antennas out there that are super easy and super cheap to build. Like I said, I could tell you to go out and buy an Arrow dual band J pole, but that J pole costs $40, right? And I can say, okay, well, let's go to the hardware store and buy us 8 foot of 1/2-inch copper pipe. And let's get a T bracket, an elbow bracket, or an elbow coupler, and a couple caps, and a SO239 connector, and some coax. And let's build you one. Or let's go and get a couple 1/4-inch or 1/8-inch copper rods and an SO239 connector, and build you a ground plane, build you a quarter wave ground plane. Both of those antennas are super easy to build. It just takes a little bit of soldering, and away you go. And it's just so easy to do. And just with those two antennas will get them on the air on 2 meters, or on 440 or 220, or wherever they want to operate on. Those two antennas are super easy to build, super cheap, and they will work. And if it's a J pole, it will work typically pretty good. Now you can go and take it one step further and build a dual band J pole. It takes a little bit more, but if it's just a single mono band J pole, they're super, super easy. And also, this allows you to expand a little bit more on the topics that was talked about in the question pool, about things like RF, radiation, wavelengths, stuff like that, station safety. All this can be taught in this antenna building class as well, to give it a little bit more meat, or teach them a little bit more. Because even if you have a week-long class, or a month-long class, or even if it's just a day class, there's so much information that you're not going to be able to deep dive into to teach these people. So anything that you can do to expand their knowledge is great, and this is one way to do it. Next up, this topic really isn't one that I have asked a lot, but it is something that I see a lot, and that's talking on the radio. Now, I'm not saying, how to talk on the radio per se, or I'm not saying, what am I not saying? I'm not saying, how to talk specifically, but getting them over that initial hump of pressing the PTT button down for the first time and talking on the air. A lot of times I find where people are just kind of afraid to press that button and say their call sign and make that first QSO. The fear is real, and it's something that it's there a lot of time, especially with new hams. Different demographics have it worse more than others. I've noticed a lot of times that a lot of YLs that I've taught classes to, that's probably their number one reason for not being on the air, is because they don't want to press that PTT button down. They don't want to talk, for whatever reason. But teaching a class on how to talk on the radio, what procedures to use on a repeater, or what procedures to use on a net, those type of things can be covered in this class. And, but first and foremost, you have to get them on the air. And even if, they just need that little extra push, whether you're, talking on a handheld and you're, 10 feet away from them, getting that initial contact out of the way is something that a lot of times people just have the hardest time with. So whatever you have to do to get them over the hump of that initial contact, you can do. You can even go as far as, quote, air quotes here, hold their hand while they make a QSO. Tell them word for word what to say. And this probably leans a little bit more towards, maybe like operating on a net or something like that. But even just a general QSO, getting them their feet wet for the first time. Because after their feet's wet the first time, that fear is not going to be there as much, and they're going to be more apt to actually talk on the radio than not. Well, I would say more than not, but that fear won't be as strong. Actually telling them, key up and say, this call sign and your call sign, and actually spell out those call signs, or, say, how is the weather today, or something like that. Actually give them verbatim on what to say to get over that initial fear of pressing that PTT and talking. And a lot of times after the first couple transmissions, they will run with it a little bit better. Now, another thing you can talk about during a class like this is net procedures, or repeater procedures, telling them how a repeater works, what it's used for, making sure that they're aware that, it takes a second for the repeater to key up after they press down the button, after they press down the PTT. So make sure that they don't talk immediately. Press the button, count to 1, count to 2, or whatever, and then start talking. That way they don't chop off the first word that they say. Talking about net procedures, the questions just lightly go over net procedures, if memory serves me correct, and it doesn't really cover a whole lot. So, tell them about the different types of nets, different styles of nets, the directed net, indirect net, a rag chew net, all the different types. Telling them, proper etiquette to use, things like, being on a Skywarn net, figure out what you're going to say, key up, wait for acknowledgement, say what you got to say in the shortest way possible, but still getting the point across, and get off, so that if there's somebody else out there that needs to pass traffic, they have a chance to do so as well. Another thing, calling CQ, calling, whether that be on HF or whether that be just locally on a repeater, telling them how to do something like that. You could even go as far as talking about the different types of digital voice modes that there are, that may be in your area. Things like D-Star, System Fusion, DMR, Echolink, IRLP, stuff like that. Talk to them. If you have a D-Star and a DMR repeater in your area, make sure that you tell those new hams how to use them. what each system is about, stuff like that. Because whether or not they have a D-Star handheld or D-Star mobile or whatever in the beginning, more than likely they will eventually, and they need to know how to do it. Now, you could say, well, I can teach that then when it happens, but why not get it done in the first place and kind of wrap it up with some other things along the way? You could even, tell them like how to use, to connect to another D-Star repeater or another System Fusion repeater, or using Echolink from their phone or from their computer and talking around the world, or doing IRLP, or phone patches if you have a phone patch on your local repeater. All these things you can talk about in this How to Talk on a Radio class. You could even go as far as saying, for the more out there crowd, maybe, talking about like a D-Star dongle, for example. If they don't want to spend that $400 or whatever it is for a D-Star handheld, they can spend, $100 or whatever it is for a D-Star dongle to plug into their computer to be able to talk on D-Star with just a regular analog radio. So, there's so much that you can talk about that you can cover in a class, for talking on the radio. The last thing that I want to talk about, or the last idea that I had, I'm sure there's probably other ideas out there, and if you can think of one, please leave a comment in the show notes or on Facebook or something like that, and let's get some ideas going for people, and for me even. And that's a specialty class. If your club has a certain function that y'all do, a certain niche that y'all do in amateur radio, let's say, for example, you do fox hunting on a regular basis in your club, teach an entry-level class on how to fox hunt. If your club does a lot of contesting, teach an entry level about doing contests. What information needs to change hands, what frequencies you're going to be using, how to talk on it. Get on, get off, because a lot of times that's the way contesting is. You don't have the rag chew QSO that you do normally. It's basically, this is my information, this is your information, thanks for the contact, and you get off. And teaching them how to use the logging software that you use in your club for your contesting. If your club, say, participates in things like Skywarn or Races or Aries or bike races or walkathons, community service events, make sure you give classes on that. If you participate in Skywarn, they're going to have to take a Skywarn class, because you have to take a Skywarn class before you can be on a Skywarn net. If you do a Races organization with your club, you're going to have to do, at the very least, the NIMS classes IC 100 and IC 700. That is the very basic classes that you have to take according to the NIMS system in order to be a Races member. Now, a lot of times clubs will also require like the IC 200 and the IC 800 as well, so they might have to do that. Now, these classes can be taken online, and a lot of times that's where they're taken from, but why not make a club setting and teach these things? A lot of times people, yes, they can learn something by doing that, by reading themselves. But if you have somebody that can actually teach you that information, a lot of times people will learn better that way. Or some people will learn better that way. Some people actually do learn quite well just by reading, and by trying or something like that. But why not give a class on these classes, or on these things that you have to take, and get a little bit more camaraderie with your club, a little bit more interaction with your club. So those are the four main classes that I thought of. What are some that y'all can think of? is there any other classes that you think should be taught to a new ham? Please leave a comment in the show notes or leave a comment on Facebook in the Facebook group, and let's see what kind of ideas we can come up with, because I think this is very important, especially for a new ham. And I talked about before in previous episodes about being an Elmer. That's what we as the older generation of hams are supposed to do, right? I mean, we're supposed to teach the newer hams, and these are just some ways of doing that. So I hope that y'all found interested in this, in these classes, and the way that I talked about them. I hope that y'all found this interesting. Again, we are going to be talking about remote control apparatuses next episode. And hopefully I'll hear back from some other people that I have emails out to. But if you would like to be on my podcast and talk about a topic, please make sure that you shoot me an email, k5clm@everythinghamradio, and let's talk about what to talk about. And I guess that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and move on to our ham blog spotlight. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, I told y'all about a YouTube video that I found by a gentleman by the name of, I don't remember his name, but his call sign is Kilo 6 Uniform Delta Alpha, and he is the Elmer with an attitude. You can find a link in the show notes of today's episode to his YouTube channel. Now, the video that I showed y'all a few weeks ago, about a month ago now, I guess, was about his journey of installing a amateur radio station in his brand new RV. He actually had an RV before, had a station in there, but didn't have any videos recorded about how he did it. And he recently purchased a new one, and is talking about how he installed stuff, where he's planning on putting stuff, putting the antennas, getting power from, where to run the coax and stuff like that. So he released another video here a couple days ago, probably about 5 or 6 days by the time this goes live, on his. This is the second video that he's released about it, and it actually shows a little bit about how he has this temporary setup at where he's going to be putting in his power coming in, and some issues that he's run into. So head on over to the show notes for a link to his YouTube channel, as well as to watch the video. Alright, so next up we have our events. All the times that are going to be set are going to be in Zulu time or UTC time, so make sure you adjust accordingly to your local time zone. So let's get started. First off, we have the SPDX RTTY contest on April the 22nd from 1200 hours to the 23rd at 1200 hours. We have the Nebraska QSO party, April 22nd from 1300 to the 23rd at 100 hours, and then followed up by the 1300 hours to 2200 hours on the 23rd. We have the BARTG Sprint 75 on April the 23rd from 1700 hours to 2059. The RSGB 80 meter club championship on data will be on the 27th from 1900 hours to 2030. We have the 1010 International Spring Contest on digital from 0001 on April 29th to 2359 on the 30th. We have the Helvetia contest on the 29th from 1300 hours to 1259 on the 30th. We have the Florida QSO party on April the 29th from 1600 hours to the 30th at 159, and then also from 1200 hours to 2359 on the 30th. We have the RSGB 80 meter club championship on single sideband May 1st from 1900 hours to 2030. And last but not least, we have the ARS Spartan Sprint, May 2nd, from 100 hours to 300 hours. All the information in this segment was taken from the WA7 BNM contest calendar, which you can find a link to in the show notes of today's episode. Alrighty, so next up we have the Hamfest for the next 2 weeks. And much like last week, there is quite a few of them. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, the 21st, which is this coming weekend, we have the Eastern VHF UHF Microwave Conference in Manchester, Connecticut, the Idaho State Convention in Boise, Idaho, and International DX Convention in Visalia, California. The next day, on the 22nd, we have quite a few of them. We have the 27th Annual Down East Hamfest in Kingston, North Carolina, Aurora 17 Convention in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, the Brennard Area Hamfest in Brennard, Minnesota, Calhoun Hamfest in Sugar Valley, Georgia, the Chassell, Michigan Hamfest in Chassell, Michigan, Communications Academy 19, I believe, XIX is in Seattle, Washington. The Delaware State Convention, Delmarva Amateur Radio and Electronics Expo in Georgetown, Delaware. We have the DMRAA Hamfest in Des Moines, Iowa. The Drumlins ARC Hamfest in Palmyra, New York. The EARC Hamfest Swap Meet in Honolulu, Hawaii. The Lewis and Clark Radio Club Hamfest 2017 in Godfrey, Illinois. North Central Indiana Hamfest in Peru, Indiana. The Piney Hills Hamfest and Hot Dog Social is in Ruston, Louisiana. The Racing Auction 2017 is in Gulls Ferry, Connecticut. Spring 2017 Cy Harris Free Flea is in Oakland Park, Florida. The Valley Radio Club Swap Fest is in Eugene, Oregon. And last, on the 22nd, we have the Wiregrass Amateur Radio Club Spring Tailgate in Headland, Alabama. On the 23rd, we have the AARO Fest 2017 in Galva, Illinois. The Framingham ARA Spring Flea Market in Framingham, Maine, I believe, MA. Actually, I think that's Massachusetts. New Jersey Hamfest in Saskatchewan, Sukasana, New Jersey. I know I butchered that name. Sorry about that. And last, we have the Two Rivers ARC Hamfest in Boston, Pennsylvania. The following weekend, on the 22nd, we have the 2017 SVHFS Conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. The 29th, we have the Cars Swap Meet Hamfest in Pooler, Georgia. The Gainesville Hamfest in Waldo, Florida. We have the Heartland Hams Hamfest in Glenwood, Iowa. Jackson County ARC Hamfest in Jackson, Ohio. The Louisiana Section Convention in West Monroe, Louisiana. The MCARC Morgantown, West Virginia Hamfest in Morgantown, West Virginia. Spring Tailgate in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We have the TCFMC Spring Tailgate in Plymouth, Minnesota. The Valley of the Moon ARC Annual Hamfest in Sonoma, California. And the York Hamfest in Spring Grove, Pennsylvania. On the 30th, we have the Athens Hamfest in Athens, Ohio. And last but not least, the Orange County ARC Hamfest in Middleton, New York. All the information in this segment was taken from the ARRL Hamfest calendar, which you can find a link to in today's show notes. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up this episode. I hope that y'all enjoyed the stuff that we talked about and gave you some ideas on what to do after you teach a technician class. And even otherwise, these are great classes to have to teach, to just anybody, training topics in your regular meeting. You can do something like this. So if you have any other topics for classes to be taught to new hams, leave a comment in the show notes or on the Facebook page, and we can talk about that later. I want to thank everybody for listening. If you like what you heard here on my podcast, please share it with your friends. And if you would like to help financially support this podcast, there are several ways you can do it. You can make a one-time donation through PayPal. You can become a per-episode contributor through Patreon. And you can simply shop on Amazon through my affiliate link. You can also buy your QSL cards through KB3IFH. Make sure that you mention that you heard from him or about him on my podcast, and I will get a small affiliate commission from him. Also, check out the upcoming swag store for the this podcast. Hopefully I will have it up this week. I've got several new things that I'm going to put on there, and I will be adding stuff continually after that. I will put a post on Facebook, and I will definitely mention it next episode on where to find it. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my email list to get updates on when I publish a new podcast episode, or in the rare event that I publish a blog post. You can do that simply by going to the show notes or going to everythinghamradio.com/subscribe. Fill out the form there, click on sign me up, and you'll get an email from me with a link that you will need to click on to confirm your subscription. I promise I will not send any spam to you. I will not sell or rent your email address out to anybody. I hate spam as much as anybody does, so just know that I won't do that. Please follow me on Facebook. Again, you can find the page at facebook.com/everythinghamradio, and the group page is at facebook.com/groups/everythinghamradio, which is the Facebook page that I'm trying to move over to, but I am still posting on both of them. But the group as a whole is easier for everybody to talk on, so I'm going to tend to go more towards that. And I will have the Facebook question of the week. Again, that is, what is your funniest phonetics for your call sign? You can follow me on YouTube at youtube.com/everythinghamradio, and on Twitter at K5CLM. That pretty much wraps it up. I can't really think of anything else, so I guess with that I will bid each of you adieu, and until next time, this is K5CLM signing out. 73, y'all.